I'm John Law, this is Chasing Cars, and this is the new Audi S4. Now, it's been fairly heavily updated in terms of the sheet metal and the outside, but underneath the skin it stays rather similar with its 3-litre V6 turbocharged engine. We don't get the TDI that you get over in Europe. Now, this car's a competitor for cars like the BMW M340i and Mercedes-AMG C43. But it's also got to compete with its own stablemates, including the S4 Avant, which actually sells more numbers this car, and the S5 Sportback. Is it right that those cars outsell this Audi S4 sedan? Well, that's what we're going to find out in today's video. Now, at the front of this Audi S4, it's not exactly a blink and you'll miss it styling update, but it is fairly similar to the old car. That said, this front single frame grille is a little bit wider and a little bit lower and adds a bit more aggression, and you get these really nice LED lights with these new daytime running light signatures. I think it looks pretty fresh up the front, but actually down the side is where Audi has made some really significant changes to this S4. It mirrors obviously the A4 sedan as well, which is a little bit more affordable than this car, but if you don't know your S4s and A4s too well, you might miss it. So this strike here used to go all the way down the side of the car and join up with the rear three-quarter there, but that's actually now gone. So that means this car actually has new doors, so it's quite different to the previous model. There's also some updates to the C-pillar as well, and it's subtle, but it all adds up to a car with just a little bit more menace. Personally, I think it looks fantastic here in this Navarra Blue colorway, and it just really sets off this classic sort of Audi business aesthetic that they've really done a good job of. And then we hop into the interior, where this sort of aesthetic continues. Now, the leather choice isn't exactly out there, however this robot grey leather is a really nice colour, and again it works nicely with that blue outside. You can get magma red or black as well inside, and there was a car we were testing on the launch, the quantum grey over magma red S4 Avant, which for me is absolutely the perfect spec, but you can let me know in the comment section down below how you would spec your S4, or perhaps how you have spec'd your S4. Now, this cockpit feels pretty familiar, especially if you spent any time in Audis over the last couple of years. It is the slightly older style cockpit. That means you get this 10.1 inch, it's now a touchscreen for the facelift, and it's a really nice crisp unit with some sort of haptic feedback when you touch the screen, and it runs a wired Apple CarPlay system, so that's a slight demerit point, but it works really nicely and crisply, and the navigation system works incredibly well. This is one of the few systems that I actually use the in-car navigation instead of, say, Google Maps or Waze through Apple CarPlay. That's because it interfaces really nicely with this 12.3 inch digital drives display ahead of me here, and you've got satellite mapping, and it just looks crisp as. You can adjust the view as well to get the S-specific hockey puck style gauges and run through all of that sort of stuff and see music. So it's a nice, well integrated piece of design. Now in front of me here I also have this really lovely leather steering wheel. You've got perforated leather where you need to grip it. This has a flat bottom, but if you remember in the S5 Sportback video we did, that wheel actually didn't have a flat bottom, that was round, so I'm not entirely sure what the go is, but the flat bottom is fine. You've got some nice soft touch materials up here on the door tops and on the dashboard, as you would expect in a car like this, and you get the extended leather package as for 2020, and that gets you this lovely leather armrest, and you get some suede trimmings here, and it all just generally feels like a really high quality bit of kit here in the S4, again as you really would expect from an Audi. Storage, going to touchscreen has meant that you open up this really dinky little storage holder. I don't know exactly what that's for, maybe a bottle of sanitizer for these times, or perhaps the key. You've also got this little trimming here, two nicely sized cup holders, though they're not much good for tall bottles because they then interfere with the drive select buttons and the climate control a little bit, though you do have good door bins that take a nice bottle. And of course covered storage, where you've got a nice rubberized pad, and you've got wireless phone charging as well as a USB-C fast charging port. Now I'm going to mention these seats as well because they're sort of a tombstone bucket style, and they're very, very comfortable. Quilted Napa leather, of course. You've got under thigh support, which is something that is just so handy for me being 6'2", and you've also got electric adjustment, 2 memory positions, heating, and massage function, which is fantastic when you're ripping through some back roads. So let's jump into the back seat of the S4 sedan and find out how comfortable it is back here. these mid-size executive cars have been growing since their inception. They used to be quite tight in the back, but now the A4 is relatively roomy back here. It's a little tiny bit more roomy than say the S5 Sportback, but really there's not much in it. If you really need headroom, as you can see, my head's pretty close to the top of the headlining here, and this is without the panoramic sun roof that is optional on this car as well. If you really need a bit more headroom, you're either going to want to go for the Avant version of this car, which you want to anyway, or perhaps an SQ5 TDI if you've got some really tall children. Now, behind my own driving position, I do have a little bit of knee room as well, which is pretty decent, and toe room is fine, but again, you could have a little bit more lift in an SUV. The quilted Nappa leather continues back here, and the seats are extremely comfortable. They're very nice. There's no heating back here for the rear bench, but that's fine. The same soft touch here and nice sort of Alcantara and leather padding is all present, which is absolutely fantastic. You've also got a very firm feeling central armrest, and you've got these two little flip out cup holders which are really nicely sized for a little coffee cup or a small bottle. And of course we have vents back here with your own climate section, two USB ports and a 12-volt socket. So rear seat room then is fine, but let's check out how practical the boot of the S4 is. Close that down. Now, while we're back here, there's a couple of things that you'll be able to tell the difference between this S4 and a regular A4. That is this snazzy little lip spoiler here, which you can get in black on a carbon black package car. I'd skip that because I like chrome, which is now there's a chrome element that actually joins the two rear lights, and the rear lights are slightly updated. So it all looks really nice and crisp back here, as you would expect of an Audi. Under the boot, it's a really nicely sprung, easy to open tailgate, so you really don't need to opt for the expensive powered tailgate option. It's just all faff to me. You don't have much bright work here, but you do have a fairly easy to get over load lip. It's a nice low load bay, and of course we've got netting and little storage places off to the side, and under the floor we do also have a space saver spare tyre, which won't be great solace to those who live in country settings, but it is at least nice to have and is better than nothing at all. And cargo space sits at 480 litres for this S4 sedan. Now, of course, what you want is the S4 Avant, because you get 505 litres of boot storage and you get the possibility to just load anything. So again, I mean, we may be slightly biased because, as you know, motoring journalists froth an Avant, but yeah, I definitely go for the S4 Avant instead of the sedan. But you can let me know what you think in the comment section down below, because we're going to take this thing out for a drive. So, out on the road in the Audi S4, what's it like out here? Well, pretty good is the basic summation. In fact, really good. It does exactly what it needs to do. It sits in its little pigeonhole between the A4 and the RS4 really nicely. And that starts with the drivetrain. So it's powered by a 3-litre V6 turbocharged engine, kicks out 260 kilowatts and 500 newton meters, which is right on the money for this kind of class in Australia. So M340i, C43 territory, a little bit less power than the rivals, but yeah, it feels just as quick as those cars. It doesn't feel lacking particularly. You can also get this with a twin-turbo diesel engine, which you can find here in the SQ5, but in Europe, only in Europe can you get it on this S4 and S5, and it's a bit of a shame. It'd be a nice little engine. It's a really chunky, beefy, punchy motor, whereas this is a little bit more zingy, a little bit more warbly, which, you know, horses for courses. I do think this suits a passenger car a little bit better than the diesel. The diesel works really nicely in this SUV. But no matter, it's a great engine and it's got a really nice note. You can switch it between myriad drive modes. I've actually got it in comfort at the moment, but individuals configured to my preferences, and when you rev it out, it sounds great. It's got a really nice little V6 warble. It's a classic V6 sound, and yeah, it really encourages you to, it sort of goads you on into driving it quicker and quicker and quicker. So it's great. It gives nice little pops on the overrun sometimes as well when you're in the right in the right rev band, and yeah, it's good. Interfaces really nicely with the ZF 8-speed gearbox as well. Audi's tuning is probably one of the crispest out there. BMW's is maybe a little smoother. Not saying this isn't smooth, but this definitely gives a bit more emotion on the changes. It really rams them home when you're in dynamic mode and under quite a bit of throttle. It feels exciting. It's good. Very much enjoy it. Of course, being an Audi, it's hooked up to a Quattro all-wheel drive system, which works great. It can send 85% of the power to the rear axle as well, so you can actually drive this car on the throttle quite nicely, and this example is fitted with the optional Quattro Sport differential, which is a $2,990 option, but it seems that all the cars we've tested have had that option ticked. So you'd probably struggle to buy one in Australia without that option, and I can't exactly say if it's necessary, but it feels really good in this car. And then that brings me on to the handling of the S4 and how it differs surprisingly to the S5 Sportback. Now, the S5 Sportback is a real scalpel of a car. It really feels sharp and poised and pointed, and it's got a really nice turn in, and from there you can get on the throttle and it really just does drive you around the corner. It's a lovely little car. This car has all of those characteristics, but with a little extra adjustability thrown in. For whatever reason, it has a slightly narrower track than the S5, and it's got a slightly higher center of gravity, being a sedan, and certainly the Avant takes this even further, but it just feels a little bit more willing to play with the driver, a little bit less clinical, a little bit less Audi and scalpel-like, and more like a concert pianist with a bit more expression available to the driver, which is a really pleasant thing. The steering as well is well weighted in dynamic, but I think it's too light in comfort. It is a lot lighter than the BMW system that would be sort of in competition with this car, and it gives the impression that this car is very light on its feet. And it certainly feels light on its feet on a country road when you're driving quickly. It feels really well suited to that sort of thing. Really slices through corners with accuracy and conviction, and it's a lovely thing to drive. It's very, very enjoyable, and you can make really rapid progress, as I'm sure you would expect that from a quick Audi. And yeah, it does it just so well. Now, all these cars are fitted with adaptive dampers as standard as well, and frankly, the dynamic mode is a little bit too firm for my tastes. It's a little bit too firm for Sydney roads, it's a bit crashy, and on the whole this S4 actually rides a little firmer than the S5 Sportback. Again, exactly why that is, I don't know. It's on slightly smaller wheels, 19s instead of 20s, but it's a very slight difference. In comfort mode though, things are fine. Things are really rosy, and the body roll isn't too pronounced. If you're on a particularly smooth section of hot mix, you can use that dynamic mode, and it just feels a little bit sharper and a little bit more keyed in. But again, it's not hugely necessary. There's a balance mode as well. And yeah, personally, I set my individual mode up to have dynamic steering and dynamic engine response, and then subdued engine note, because the fakery is all a little bit too much. It actually just sounds really good in subdued mode, and then with the suspension in comfort, generally speaking. And that's my favorite way to drive it around. Flipping through the pedals, although they do feel a little bit plasticky, it's a nice thing to do, and it responds really nicely to all the driver's inputs. As for safety, the S4 has pretty much everything you've come to expect from a car like this. It comes with AEB with pedestrian and cyclist detection. Comes with a really nice adaptive cruise control system with traffic jam assist, which works really great. The Audi system is definitely tuned to get closer than most of the other ones out on the market, so you can sit quite close to cars. You've also got a lane keep assist, which really comes straight to your fingertips. It's placed on the end of this indicator stalk, and so you can just pop it on when you want on the freeway and pop it off really easily. And it works really nicely, and it just means you can turn off in a car like this when you don't want to go quickly, and then it has that really nice surprising turn of speed with the ability to really carve a back road when you need. And of course, when you're on a long freeway drive, you just settle into these seats, massage function, heating on, and just have a lovely time of it. So I think Audi has really nailed exactly what this S car is supposed to be, and it's really not confused about its identity one iota. So what do we think of the Audi S4 then? Well, it's a great little business sedan. It's a really quite nice car to drive on a country road with more adjustability than you might expect. But of course it's at home riding down the freeway at high speeds with that massage function seat and heating going on to keep you really nice and comfortable. As for whether the sedan is the pick of the range, well, the sales figures kind of tell the story. Really, the S4 Avant would be my pick, but of course I'd love to know what you think in the comments section down below. Would you go for an S5 Sportback like the majority of buyers do? Or would you go for something completely different? Let me know down below. And while you're down there, we'd also love it if you could hit subscribe and that bell icon. And as always, thank you for watching Chasing Cars.